Warning: the following contains explicit language and subject matter that may not be suitable for younger listeners, church folk, and people who enjoy kale smoothies.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to A Pod Amongst Men. I'm your host, Steve B., and these are coffee break conversations for the 21st century. So we're back after episode 100. Thank you guys again for tuning in, for listening, for your love and support. It's, I can't stress how much I appreciate it, how much it means to me. And if it wasn't for you guys, this wouldn't be a thing. So again, thank you. I love you. I love you mucho. All right, so enough of that shit. Enough with the hugging and kissing here. So this is episode 101. My guest today is a friend of mine, Luke Taylor. He's a guy I grew up with. We were very close friends at a very tender young age, and he's grown up to be quite an intelligent, talented man. We're the same age. I can't say young man. That would sound a little condescending, and I don't want to do that. I'm not that guy. Okay? But Luke was a musician, still is. Let me rephrase it. He is a musician. I was really, I'm doing the condescending thing, and I don't want to do that. I don't know why. But he was a musician. He was one of the first people I knew that became a musician growing up. I think that's what I meant to say. So sorry, Luke. I'm rambling here. But he's a dad. He's a very intelligent guy. Very nice guy. Very. Not like polite in the sense where he has good manners. He's just like he's a sweet dude, and I really enjoy talking to him. It's been a long time. It's been too long, but he was kind enough to share his time with us. So I'm not going to ramble on and do the whole thing and ruin the the interview with my mindless jabber. But without further ado, here's my conversation with Luke Taylor. Where it takes us, but I wanted to talk a lot about band stuff, because I know that was something you were years ahead of me with that, and I feel like we never really got to talk about it because we always only saw each other in passing after you moved away.
Yep. No, for sure. No, I'm happy to talk about that. And it's funny because we're staying with my parents right now, so I've been thinking a lot about my childhood and stuff already, just being here. So I was like, actually, the timing's worked out really nicely. So yeah, sounds good.
So do you want to give your own version of an intro and introduce yourself so the audience kind of has a brief idea of who you are?
Sure. Should I start now? We're good?
Yeah. No, we're already in, man.
All right, sweet. So my name is Luke Taylor. I'm 36 years old. I grew up in New Jersey.
Hey.
I was born in England to English parents who moved to New Jersey when I was 10 months old. So born there, but really Jersey through and through. I'm a father to a 4-year-old girl with another girl on the way, actually, in August.
Really? Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, I work in technology. I'm a musician. Music is one of my passions, and that's me.
So, let's go to the beginning here. So you said, you moved here when you were 10 months old. Now you and I first met in the first grade. If we're being honest, when I first moved to the town of Bridgewater, where we grew up, you partially grew up there. You moved away at one point, but where we started to come up, you were my first close friend.
Yep.
Yeah, because
likewise.
We were in the same class. We ended up, your dad was a coach of our soccer team.
Right.
I remember, I think you were one of the first people whose house I went over to play, as my wife would describe it, as a play date, even though I vehemently disagree with that use of terminology. Yeah.
It does feel funny to say. I'm with you on that. I remember that. I remember sleepovers and watching movies. And I remember how funny you always were, even at that age. And a lot of good memories. First grade.
One of the things I wrote down in my notes was that your parents were the first people I ever met that spoke with an accent. Because I was a little kid, as a first grader, I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah. Why did they talk like that?
Well, it threw me for a loop. And then your dad was, we're from England. I said, oh, that's right. I'm like, there's
Yeah.
it's a big world. There's a lot of people from all over the place, and
Right.
and I've definitely mentioned this part on the podcast before. Your dad introducing me to Monty Python and like John Cleese, like Faulty Towers, like
Yeah.
English humor. That
Uh-huh.
I can't stress enough how much that was like what's the word? It was critical in my formation of my sense of humor.
Formative
There you
exposure.
go. There you go.
Yeah.
I should have the vocabulary words on point a little better. So I appreciate that.
No, yeah, no, that was a big deal in my childhood too. I remember people asking my dad when they would, meet him and learn that he emigrated, and they would say, "What do you miss about England?" And he would say, "The sense of humor and the pubs."
Mm.
And that stuck with me. I remember him saying that to lots of people when I was a kid. And yeah, it was cool to get turned on to that British culture, that the comedy even as a kid, and it felt special. Like
Yeah.
it felt like discovering a band or something. Like it was somewhat obscure, and it was very silly and like universally silly, and the kids could get into it, just as much as adults.
It's funny.
That's awesome, though.
I try to show, like, they have all the Monty Python stuff on Netflix now. I was trying to show my wife and my son some of like the famous like sketches, and they had the one where John Cleese was the karate instructor, and he was saying, "What if somebody attacks you with fruit?"
Classic.
And it's just I don't know. I feel like it's kind of an acquired taste when you kind of like. So my wife is from Cuba, so her sense of humor is a little different, and my son is a kid of the next generation here, and he watches YouTube all the time, so his sense of humor is totally different than ours. And it
didn't translate for them.
Not really, and it really, I'm not gonna lie, it broke my heart a little bit. Because that would
you keep really, trying, Yeah,
there's
a lot of material.
Do you ever go through that with your daughter? Like you try to show her stuff from your childhood that meant a lot to you, and it just doesn't click with her?
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't tried that much stuff. The one thing that happened, we went to Disney World last year before everything in the world shut down, when the world was a simpler place. Yeah. And we went to the Star Wars park, and she had no idea what Star Wars was going.
You went to the one at Hollywood Studios, the Galaxy's. Yeah.
Which I was the child in that scenario, but I hadn't even really tried to show her Star Wars. I don't think before that. I just assumed she was too young. And when we were in the park, though, she was seeing all the imagery from Star Wars, and she was seeing like the characters walk around and stuff, which was a trip for anybody. But for her, she was like, "What is this?" Like she kept turning into like, "What? Who is that?" I'm like, "That's Darth Vader." And it was just like you could see her mind being blown. And then from that point on, she started watching all the Star Wars movies, and like she still doesn't really follow the plot line or anything. You know what I mean? But which I remember watching it that way when I was a little kid, like not really perceiving exactly what's happening, but just loving the whole, aesthetic and atmosphere. But anyway, apart from that, I haven't really tried pushing anything yet. I mean, I guess there's been like The Simpsons and certain things, but in most cases, I feel like she's just not old enough for it yet. So
I tried watching The Simpsons with my son, and it just so happened we put on like a Halloween episode, and in this episode, people are just getting like chopped up and dismembered. I was like, Jesus Christ, I don't remember The Simpsons being like this. It was like super violent. I was like, that's man, funny. I think that's about it for Simpsons for a little while.
Dude, we occasionally now, because my daughter is now old enough to watch movies, so we'll sometimes be like, all right, we're gonna eat dinner on the couch and put a movie on a movie night. And sometimes we'll try to put on a movie that we remember from our childhood that'll show up on one of the apps, and in almost every case we put it on and we're like, Jesus, we should never have put this movie on, because it's just amazing how much has changed in 30 years in terms of what is in kids films now. And what did we watch? We were watching it was Little Rascals. Do you remember the Little Rascals movie?
Yeah, I do.
Have you seen it recently?
No, but I mean my memory's pretty good on that movie.
It's a cursed film, man. I'm telling you. There's a Donald Trump cameo in it.
I'm aware. Yeah, he plays the rich
kid. Remember that?
Dad. He shows up in the bleachers at the end. You're the best son money could buy.
You really do remember it. So that did not stick with me. When I saw him, I was like, I can't believe. Anyway, yeah. So no, I haven't tried Monty Python yet. I got to consider carefully which sketch I would start with.
Well, it's, like the stuff we
yeah.
watched as kids wasn't really kid stuff. It was just stuff.
Right.
It was for everyone. And, if your parents let you watch it, you got to watch it. Now there's so many things that are tailored specifically to little kids. And it's a very different atmosphere in media, I guess, for little kids.
Yeah, that makes sense. And discovering something new is not the same as it was.
Yeah.
Like you only had a couple channels as a kid that you'd watch. Now there's just so much.
Yeah, I mean, we came up before Cartoon Network. We had Disney and Nickelodeon, and that was it. And then on like UPN and NBC or whatever, they would show stuff on Saturday morning. But kids have an entire universe of stuff now that wasn't available to us.
Right. And those old British shows, it was like my dad would have it on like a VHS or something that he'd pull out of a box and he'd be like, check this out. And it was like, whoa, it's from another planet. And you don't have that same experience now. So that makes sense.
Well, some stuff I see my son catch on to. Like we watched the movie Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, cool.
Then he was like, oh, okay, I like these songs. And plus one of the songs, Don't Stop Me Now, showed up in the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. So now he loves that, But he remembers Freddie Mercury, like he knows Michael Jackson, like some like iconic, his stars from back in the day. But
cool.
I see little hints of things catching on, and it gives me hope,
Yeah, that's great.
He does like Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme, though, which
wow.
I'll throw that one in there. And I mean, he likes it.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Like we were walking around the house. We were walking around the house doing the song. It was pretty hilarious, but that's about it.
That rules. Well, there's a whole Jean-Claude Van Damme catalog you can work through now.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Been open.
That one is such an iconic movie, even more so than like Kickboxer or any of the other ones, like Bloodsport with Chong Li, and
that's the OG. That's the good one.
So, moving back, I knew you after you moved away. Like you didn't move far; we just moved a couple towns away. Around what was that, like fifth grade?
Right before fifth grade, yeah, the summer before fifth grade. Yep.
And I think we kept in touch a little bit, and then as we got around high school years, then all of a sudden, I heard of this band called Idle Youth, and like, oh shit, Luke is a singer of this band. So when did the music start? Like, when did you discover that you had musical ability? Like, was there an aha moment?
There wasn't really a moment per se. I always loved it. It was always, I grew up in a house where my parents were music fans. There was always music on, and I was passionate about my music. Actually, I remember us being really into Tag Team and knowing all the words to You and I to Whoop, There It Is.
Yes.
And rapping that on the playground.
To throw another one out there, I remember us trying to associate different songs to different superheroes, listen to like the Spin Doctors and stuff. And your dad also introduced me to Queen. I remember, we could associate Pocket Full of Kryptonite to Superman because, Kryptonite makes sense.
Of course.
This is on the way to soccer practice at Adamsville. Yes,
I remember that too. That's amazing.
Right? A blast from the past, man.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So I was, we were big music fans even then. And I remember really wanting a guitar. At some point I started getting into rock guitar music. You know what I mean? It was pop music to start, and then rock guitar bands started getting through to me, and I found Nirvana. I started listening to a Nirvana CD that my parents had, and then Green Day was on the radio, and it was starting to be that when we were around 10 years old, the kind of, California pop punk stuff started being in the mainstream. And so then I wanted a guitar, and my parents didn't want to get me one at first because I had just quit my karate lessons. And they're like, you're just going to quit guitar, just like you quit karate. And I was like, no, I'm serious. I really want to do this. So eventually my grandma bought me a Toys R Us guitar that had a built-in amp in it.
Nice.
So it was like a little speaker in the amp. It was like a toy basically, but you could put strings on it, and it was like, half the size of a typical guitar. But I started taking lessons on that, and I stuck with it. And eventually I took guitar lessons in Somerville, in a place above Gorney's Music on Main Street, Somerville. from this guy Les, who was awesome, and he eventually, after I don't know, maybe 6 months, he was like, "We got to talk to your parents. You got to get a real guitar. This isn't a real guitar.
You can't have this thing. This is like the Stratiat, you know."
Yeah, exactly. So they got me a Squire Stratocaster, and then that was it, man. And I just remember starting to learn songs that I knew from the radio, like starting to learn guitar, chord progressions and learning the Smells Like Teen Spirit intro riff and playing it like really slowly, painfully slowly. But I was like, all right, well, it started to become clear that like music that I was starting to listen to was not that hard to play. Like it was attainable, like it was doable.
Do you recall like albums or bands? I know you've mentioned Nirvana a couple times, like other artists and bands that were influential to you at the time that kind of inspired you. Because I know, like for me, I had a few that really made me want to play.
Yeah.
Like, I was a sophomore in high school and just randomly went digging through my stepmom's CD collection and finding the first Rage Against the Machine CD.
Oh,
and
wow.
I remember the song Wake Up was playing at the very end of the first Matrix movie. And I'm like, yo, that's on here. I'm like, yo, I'm going to steal this and hopefully she won't notice. And that like changed my life, that album.
That's awesome. That's a great one too.
Like, what was it for you? Was it, I mean, aside from Nirvana?
Yeah, it was Nevermind. And then I think Dookie was probably, and still, when you listen to the music I make now, Dookie is still right there.
Honestly, that album still holds up, I think. I think
totally.
It's, to this day, it still holds up.
I agree. I was having this conversation with someone recently. It's the songwriting is like incredibly mature, I think, considering they were like 19 when they made that record.
It's weird.
Wild.
If you listen to songs like Longview and stuff, it's like very self-aware.
Yes.
But it's like, we know we're just stupid kids, like, but we're aware of it,
right?
Which is weird. It's almost like a little paradox going on. Like, are you really that immature if you recognize it? If
you're conscious of it, yeah. No, I totally. It's really clever, really good lyrics. The harmonies were always subtle but really, really good. They were like punk rock. They were the punk rock Beatles, I think. And it's funny because I still listen to some of their newer stuff now, and it's like, it's almost like their songwriting got less mature over time or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even considering that they wrote American Idiot, which was a pretty influential album at the time.
It's like, well, I think it's their biggest ever, right? Bigger than
I think
Dookie
so.
was.
Is it bigger than Dookie?
I don't know. Maybe not, because, well, it came out when records were still like being bought by people. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'd be interested to see. But yeah, anyway, Dookie was the one that instilled the album that was formative for me in terms of, and really motivated me to want to play music, like playing a band.
So when did you guys form the band?
The band kind of evolved from the very first time I ever played music with somebody else was with Jason Gilardi. Remember Jason?
Yes,
Gilardi?
I do.
So I got my guitar, my real guitar, and I could play some open chords. And his dad had a drum set in the basement.
Yep, I remember him being a drummer.
Yeah, so his dad got out the old drum set, and we just started making noise. And we didn't really know what we were doing, but it was fun to screw around and make noise. I remember having my mom come and take photos of us posing with our instruments and stuff. It's a lot of posing. And then some other kids got involved. There was a kid named Nick Delacruz who
I remember the name.
Came in. Yeah, so he came in and he was he helped us take it up a notch because he was already writing songs. Mm-hmm. And he was confident enough to sing a song, which I was not doing at that point. So then it was kind of all right, well, I'm playing lead guitar, learning his songs. And then we got Evan Coniglio started playing bass.
A phenomenal bass player, by the way.
Yeah,
he's the one guy, I think, one of a couple guys that legit made something out of music. He's
100%.
He's fantastic.
And he came in and was always passionate about it, really driven and passionate from day one. And then, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but, members evolved as we went from kind of late middle school into high school. And then it ended up being me and Pat McCary and Evan. And that was when it really was like Idle Youth, and we started playing shows and recording stuff. And
So I ask every musician on the show this: do you recall your first show that you ever played live?
The first time I performed was actually not with that group. It was with another group of kids in my middle school, and we played When I Come Around, and I played guitar. And my best friend Justin, this is in Reddington, this is when we moved out of Bridgewater. He sang, and he was the new kid in school. Like it was like, I feel like it was the first week of school or something. He didn't know anybody, and he stood up and sang When I Come Around for our band, which to this day, I'm very impressed by his courage there. But
that's a hell of a way to make a first impression on people.
I know. And I was sitting in a chair because I didn't have a guitar strap. I didn't know how to play standing up. So I was sitting in a chair, and we played it. It was the only song we knew. We played it around once. And then the teachers were like, encore, encore. And then we're like, we don't know any other songs. They're like, just play it again. So then, and Justin, I remember Justin looking at me and like, Jesus Christ, I have to sing the song again. And so we played it twice. That was the first.
That's like pulling back the curtain. You know what I mean? Like you have to play the same song, right? Like consecutively.
Right.
Like, okay. Yeah. It's hard to be passionate about this since we literally just did it like 3 minutes ago.
Just did it. And now we can't even pretend to be a real band because now we've only learned one song. And I think there was a kid that was supposed to be playing bass, but there was no bass amp. So he was just playing a bass, but not plugged into anything. So you obviously couldn't hear him. He was just kind of a prop.
My friend Tony told me a story about one of his bands where they were playing shows, and then like everything sounded weird. Like the mix was always off whenever they played live, and they would be in practice. Like, why doesn't it sound this good when we play shows? And then like months later, they found out like the bass player was like, oh yeah, I just been turning my bass all the way down because I didn't really learn the songs. So like that's why it sounds fucked up. He was just like pantomiming the whole time. Like, why does it sound like shit? Needless to say, they kicked that guy out.
That's so funny. I love the whole like, I just want to be up there on a stage. You don't have to hear me. Yeah. I'm not going to play anything really, but I'll be there.
That's what the Mighty Mighty Bosstones did. They had that one guy who just danced around.
Oh, the dancing guy. That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
The dancing guy.
Do you think he got paid the same as the guys that were actually playing the music?
Honestly, I've never been able to wrap my head around what he was even doing there. Like, what was his purpose?
Hype man, I guess. But even a hype man, did he sing? He must have sang backups.
I don't know. I was never that into them. I just kind of knew a couple songs. Like I remember years later, I was in a cover band. Like they wanted to play The Impression I Get from Mighty Mighty Bosstones, and I remember learning it. Like, man, this is like a walking bass line. This one's kind of a pain in the ass. I was like, you guys think we just pick something else aside from this?
Can we not play swing? Can we just try not? Yeah.
That was always a problem for me. Like when you're playing live, especially in a cover band, the sets are so long, and there's so many sets. We would play like 4 sets in a night. Like each one was like 40 minutes to an hour long. So it's a lot of stuff to remember. And, just physically, when you have complicated bass lines like that, it really wears down on like your finger strength. So something like that, like a pain in the ass, is like, come on, like this is just going to make my life miserable. Like not enough people really love this song. Then it's going to be missed if we don't play it.
I've never played in a cover band. I played cover songs obviously, but I never played a whole set of covers. And that's another level of effort. That's tough. And you're trying to do right by the original songs too, which means, that's tough. I've never had that experience.
Well, we had you have so many songs that you have to know. And some of the ones like were so far away from one another, like there would be different tunings and stuff. So we figured out if we tuned in this weird tuning, we could play everything without having to change it like halfway through the night. But some things you had to relearn, like, all right, now it's a little higher in the neck or a little lower. Right. And we would play Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. And with that weird tuning, it took all like the open notes, and now they were like a 1 or a 3. And it's like, God damn it. Like now it could have been so easy. And now it's a really hard song because it's like a big stretch. And like I have a weak pinky still to this day. And it made it easier, but then made it harder at the same time. And then I realized like 6 months later, like my 2 guitar players were like, oh yeah, we stopped doing that because, it really wasn't necessary. I was like, oh, Thanks for telling me. I've been down tuning for no reason
song too, right? Well, you have to change keys also. Doesn't that song go
Yeah,
like?
in the end, the last chorus. All right, so you guys had Idle Youth, and we were in high school. Like there was people who had bands, but nobody was really doing it seriously. I felt like, at least that I was friends with. But you guys, I knew that you guys had played shows with legit other bands. I remember hearing about you playing with like Fall Out Boy and stuff back in the day. Like,
Really?
I met Josh had told me this after Evan left, when Josh was in the band.
Yeah,
He
that's
mentioned
possible.
that.
I don't even know.
But this is like long before Fall Out Boy was like had blown up.
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah, we were playing a lot of shows, and we were like opening a lot of shows for bands that were coming through. Like we were just being. I remember we were regulars at Hamilton Street Cafe in Bound Brook. We played there all the time, and different firehouses around town and stuff. And it was a blast. It was. It's hard for me to listen to some of the songs from back then now, because they were so sincere, like so brutally sincere and vulnerable, and almost exclusively about girls that didn't like me, or a girl that did like me but didn't like me anymore. And
what else did guys our age write about back then?
Exactly. Well, it's also the example being set for us. Like all the bands that were big, that was like the emo, the time of emo getting big. So all the bands that I was starting to listen to were writing things the same kind of vein. So like I said, it's kind of hard for me to listen to some of that stuff now. It's just kind of, I'm embarrassed by how vulnerable I was, I guess. But I am really proud of how hard we worked at it and how seriously we took it. And it was like, where I put all my time. I wasn't doing any sports or anything. I was just going to school and then working on that, and having a lot of fun. It was awesome.
How were your parents with it? Were they supportive?
Totally. Yeah. They liked it a lot. I mean, like any parents, they were like, they placed a lot of emphasis on school and they wanted me to take that seriously. But I think as far as they were concerned, I was doing things that were productive. I was, keeping busy, hanging out with friends. And I was really, at that point, I'd been playing guitar for 7-8 years, and I was, it was my passion. I was really into it. So I think they were always really supportive.
So how long did that band go on for? Like, when did it kind of dissolve?
When I went to college, we kind of stopped playing, which I didn't go far. I went to college in the city, but I threw myself into the college thing, and we just kind of gradually stopped playing. But it lasted through all of high school. I think it really picked up when we were like going into junior years, when we started to play more and more, and we were starting to record and get shows and stuff.
That was around the time when I moved back to Jersey, because I was living in Pennsylvania for like a year and a half. I had moved out with my biological father. I was right over the border. It was in the like Lansdale area. So a little over an hour from here. But when I came back, I remember buying an Idle Youth shirt from Pat, and like I was big into breakdancing at the time. So there was like in my parents' basement, I bought one of those like roll out linoleum mats and just put like a little soft padding underneath it, and that was my breakdance like workshop. And I remember having my friend like taking pictures as we were like doing moves and stuff, and there was like a whole photo shoot we did, or I happened to have that Idle Youth t-shirt on.
That's awesome.
Which couldn't have been further. Yeah, and it's funny because it couldn't have been further from the music that we were listening to breakdance.
No, it wasn't really breakdancing music. That rules though. That's awesome.
I was like a rocker kid who was, into hip hop at the same time. It was weird, in high school, a lot of people don't kind of cross those lines.
That's cool though.
There were so many scenes like in high school, whether you're like an athlete or a musician or just like a weirdo or a pothead. And I felt like so many of them were, at least in our generation, were based off the music that we listened to.
Right.
Did you ever notice that? Like, is that just me? Or is that like
no,
a
totally
thing?
No. That checks out. I remember there being like kids that were into hip hop. I remember there were kids that would be into like jam bands. All the DMB
kids.
Right. Hacky sacks and so on.
Yeah, and Birkenstocks.
Yeah. and which is really what Josh DeLucchi was coming into Idle Youth, actually. Birkenstocks all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, no, they were metalheads too. Looking back, I was pretty. I mean, I guess a lot of kids were this way, but I was pretty closed-minded at that time about music. Like I thought
we all
punk
were.
rock is, yeah, and I regret that somewhat now. But yeah, that's just how kids are, I guess.
Yeah, it's just something that comes with youth, Then you get older and you realize there's an entire galaxy of other music out there, and
right, to appreciate and not
exactly.
be judgmental of. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I first started playing, I was a little older. I didn't get my first instrument till I was 20. So we were already, well out of high school, and I wasn't in college at the time. So all I had was like my job, which is like, okay, it's a 9 to 5. It's, steady. I don't have to worry about what my shift is going to be next week. So I dove headfirst into that. But we were into metal, like the heavy stuff.
That's what I remember you playing. You played bass.
Yeah.
Right.
And, it was very different. And then that band broke up, and then I was in like a pop punk band, not pop punk, but I guess kind of. It was like a little emo-y pop kind of thing. And that was for like a couple months. Do you remember Union City Blue?
Yeah.
It was the lead singer, Karsten. He had started a band after the fact. So I was playing in that for like 2-3 months. And I was like, yeah, I don't like this. And then we started the cover band, and that went on for a little bit. And so now, we're the same age. We're both 36. You have a band now. You have Hot Knife, correct?
Yeah. Hot Knife.
So,
yeah.
How did that come about? Like, was it like there was a long period between Idle Youth and Hot Knife? Was there anything going on between that, or was that just something you were like, "Hey, I miss it"?
Yeah. So I went to college for music production and music business. Like, I wanted to. It seemed like that was the best way for me to try to take what I was doing in high school and turn it into a career of some kind. Mm-hmm. So I went to this program at NYU that was brand new, and it was all about the idea was that it was going to create record producers, people that could produce records and write songs and learn studio engineering and stuff. So
that's Brian Eno right here.
Yeah. So that was exciting and challenging, and I made a lot of music with different people while going through that program, and different kinds of music and stuff. And then I actually met my wife Darla because she was a songwriter, and I was working with my friend Kalpin with Darla on her music, producing her music. And we started dating while we were collaborating on that. So yeah, I mean, there was music being made all the time through college. And then I finished college. There were effectively no jobs in the music industry that were easy to get beyond being like somebody's executive assistant, which even that I was interviewing to be like a secretary for an A&R guy or for a radio promotion guy. And I wasn't getting any of those jobs that I was interviewing for. Mm-hmm. So I went a different path, and I got an opportunity. Well, for a little while, I worked at this company that did music, like publicity for bands. I did that for like 8 months, and then I got an entry-level job at a tech company and just followed that path and got really into that working world for a while and just stopped playing music. I think I was probably kind of burnt out after college. Mm-hmm. Definitely being in New York City and playing music was humbling. You know what I mean?
Were you still playing in the city?
Kind of. I mean, I was making music with my friends and stuff. I wasn't really playing shows. I was in a band for a little while. We were called the Whales, and two of the people in that band went on to have careers. One of them is Night Jewel. You can look her up. She's awesome. But anyway, so I did play a little bit, but yeah, by the end of college, I think I was just burnt out, and then trying to find a job in music was demoralizing. And then there's just so many people playing music, and it's just, I don't know. I got really self-conscious, and I didn't have much confidence in it anymore. Like I said, I was just burnt out and kind of uninspired. So I didn't do it for a long time, like a decade. And then Hot Knife started because I always kept in touch with Vic Costello, who was in a band called Static Radio.
Yep.
When I was in Idle Youth, and they went on to be on Chunk Saw Records and tour the world. And
I remember them playing like basement shows on Hamilton Street in New Brunswick. Yeah.
So they were like a real New Brunswick band. They had a New Brunswick party house for a while, basically a punk house that was really fun to hang out in. So I stayed close with all those guys, and I was really, proud of them, watching them go on and tour and do the real punk rock band thing. And then, so yeah, then Vic was living in Jersey City, and he was like, "Hey, we should play music. Let's start trying to write something and put something together." And he found Matt, our drummer, and Ryan, the other guitar player. And I just said, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And I was self-conscious. Like, it'd been so long since I'd done that I was a little uncomfortable getting back into it.
Of course.
But then as soon as we started, it was like immediately fun. And I remember telling Darla, I was like, "Man, I really missed this. I didn't know how much I missed it, but like having this outlet and something else to focus on, it meant a lot to me." And that was before I was a dad. We started it like less than a year before Junie, my daughter, was born.
So were you and Darla already married at that point?
Yeah.
Now, how was she, you said she was a songwriter herself. So how was she when it came to the music stuff, when you decided to start this?
Super supportive. Yeah. She was excited for me, and she could tell that it was something that I needed to do. Like, I was kind of burnt out at work, and I just uninspired generally, I think. And I just needed a new challenge and project, and she recognized that. And yeah, and she's actually, since she started her own music again too. So
that's awesome.
Both of us have our own little projects going on, which is nice. It's good to have that.
So now, like, I never knew that she was also a musician. So with your daughter has a mom and a dad who are both musicians. How have you guys been able to kind of indoctrinate her, for lack of a better word, and make her a musician out of her?
I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm trying not to be too pushy about it. Like, I'm conscious of parents that are pushing anything too hard. I don't want to turn her off, but she's definitely naturally interested in it, and she can sing, and she's got an ear. Like, sometimes I'll be playing guitar, and she'll have toys, and she'll start singing along to what I'm playing in the guitar and make up a tune. And it's like the toys singing a song, basically. So she does little things like that. And then we try to just have instruments around all the time. So she's got a drum set in the basement, and a little acoustic guitar and some tambourines and harmonicas and stuff. And she's gotten really into, with Disney Plus, like, she's gotten really into the Descendants and these Disney
movies. My son liked that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of choreographed dancing and songs. It's like musicals. So she's doing a lot of like dancing around the house and like pretending to be one of the characters from a Disney movie. And so she's definitely a performer. I think it's probably inevitable. And Darla's dad, my father-in-law, is Glenn Burtnick. He's a professional. He's a musician his whole life, and he's played in Styx and like ELO and stuff. So he's
holy shit
legit. So Darla grew up in a really musical family and spent summers on tour buses and stuff. Like, she's lived the whole thing.
Yes, your daughter's got it in her bones now. Like, there's no way around
it's
it.
Inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean, unless she like really, it's like a big rebellious pushing back thing. I think it's inevitable. I don't think she can escape it.
Well, I think you have the right approach. Like, you're not trying to force it down her throat. Just kind of put these things out there, and if she takes to it, she takes to it. And I think that's maybe the best way, especially if it's, music is something that's important to you and your wife both. She'll just kind of naturally gravitate towards it if it's meant to be.
The thing that totally. And the thing that I hope is that she observes us making our own music, and that's an idea that she's familiar with, that's a possibility to her. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a common thing. Oh yeah, you can make your own music and express yourself that way. Like, I'm really hopeful she does that. And I keep talking to other parents around us, like, who have kids that are a little older that are playing music. I'm trying to figure out if kids still start bands or not. I can't tell if it's still a thing.
Honestly, the scene is not what it used to be. I can say that with some level of certainty. I don't see a lot of kids playing instruments aside from like, school band and stuff like that. But, you'd like the Firehouse shows, like the old Knights of Columbus shows from some towns.
Yeah.
I think those might have, gone by the wayside at this point. There's not a lot of small venues anymore, even.
Right.
It's just, that's not where the thirst is for content. Most kids, they listen to stuff that can be done on the computer, whether you
Right.
have like, you have like an old version of Fruity Loops or something, you just make beats at home. Like as far
Right.
as rock music, there's not a lot really left, at least here, in Jersey, because I'm still in the general area that we grew up in. And it's just
Yeah.
not what it used to be. Most of the guys that do it are still like guys that are our age who just never let it go,
Right.
you know?
Right. Exactly. Doing.
playing
I
playing like
know.
a dive bar on a Friday night, getting mad because a guitar player didn't practice. It's like,
Well,
guys,
and it right, 100%. And it would be uncomfortable if there were high school kids there playing music with us. I would feel funny. But I hope that that's the thing. I hope that there's some opportunity to do that, because I really think it was like, I don't know. I think it was really important to me, and it was, I learned so much from that kind of collaborating with people, and I think you get a lot of confidence from that experience. And so I hope that that's an opportunity for her. I know when I talk to other parents about it, sometimes they'll say, "Oh yeah, I put my kid into a rock band class
mm-hmm.
where they like learn with other kids, and other kids are playing different instruments, and at the end of the class they play like a recital." I'm like, that's great, that's cool, but it's not the same as
It's
like
not, yeah, it's not organic.
putting your own thing together in your friend's basement, and then like working on it and then putting a show together. And
Yeah.
so I might be the embarrassing dad trying to force those things. That might be what I get a little too intense about.
Well, they have this thing, it's called School of Rock, and they have them all over the state.
Right.
Yeah, where it's essentially like that. It's like learn to be a rock star. It's like, well, if you have to go to a class for it, it's not the same thing, Like
Right. I'm sure it's great. Like, I'm sure
it's
it's
like
a good experience.
corporatizing it.
Yeah. Well, it's just organized by the parents. I feel like at the end of the day, like
Mhm.
I'm sure it's a great experience, and I'm sure, and hopefully it shows kids that they can go and do it on their own. They don't need to go to the class to do it. I just think there's so much value in the DIY,
Yeah.
Even if the music's not great, just.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at that age, it rarely ever is.
It's right. Yeah, true.
But the thing
Good
is,
call.
too, if you look at, what's big out there on the charts and what's in the radio, there's no rock music anymore. Like, there's
Yeah.
a few bands, but it's like everything is so produced that there's nothing like,
Yeah.
there's no punk anymore. There's no like, even metal is, hard to come by nowadays.
Yeah.
Everything is very compartmentalized. And as far as
Right.
what kids listen to, I would argue, I'm probably talking out of my ass here, but like 90% of it is not rock oriented. Even if it may have, come from rock somewhere along the line, it's not stuff that you're going to hear kids playing in a garage or something.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's
Right.
nothing inspiring this next generation to do that, because everything is done on the computer now.
Yeah. I mean,
Sad, right? Makes you
is
feel
sad.
old.
It's almost like it doesn't really matter what medium they're using, as long as there's some collaboration happening. And I'm just trying to think about what I value in that activity. You know what I mean? I think it is working with other people, and like,
Yeah. Well, that's
that
one of the
for
best.
me was a big part of it.
That's one of the best parts about being in a band is working as a team and creating
Totally.
something, even if you want to kill each other half the time.
Yeah,
Often
exactly.
happens.
But then when you get to that point where you're feeling really good about something you've created together, and it's coming together, like that feeling of it coming together collectively is the best part. Like, to this day with Hot Knife, it's my favorite part. Like, writing something new and working on it, and we finally get to the point where it's like locking in. It's the best. It's my favorite part.
So now with Hot Knife, you're obviously much older than you were when Idle Youth was a thing. Has your approach to writing and playing changed as you've gotten older and matured? Like, did you feel like when you go in there and, start writing with the other guys, you feel like, oh, I feel like I'm 17 again? Or is it a totally different, because, our life experience is not what it was then? Like, are you still writing about girls that didn't like you?
No, thankfully I moved on from that. But I'm definitely, I've been humbled by life. I think, like anybody, like as they get older, I'm not as I don't know, cocky and comfortable on stage. I'm a little more self-conscious in some ways as a middle-aged man. There's always a question in the back of my mind, like, should I really be up here? I'm not sure I should be up here. But
you think they could tell I have acid reflux?
Yeah, exactly. Do they know when I went to bed last night? Do they know? I don't think they know.
I think I'm starting to have an issue with my sciatica. Can you guys just stay a little further away?
Yeah, exactly. I'm definitely sometimes a little self-conscious, but for the most part, I have clarity about why I'm doing it. You know what I mean? Like it's a fun thing. I want it to be as good as it can be. I'm like motivated to work on it and improve it. And in terms of writing, it's kind of the same process as it was. Although in Hot Knife, I'm collaborating a lot with Vic. He writes a lot, and sometimes we'll write together. So I'm having fun bouncing ideas off of him and off the guys at practice too. We kind of, one of us will come in with an idea, and then collectively we'll work on it and throw different ideas around. So it's a little bit more collaborative in the writing side than I think Idle Youth was. At least that's how I remember it. So that's fun. And then, yeah, lyrically, I'm a little more guarded than I was. I'm not as hard on my sleeve kind of thing, but yeah, it's fun. It does feel in many ways the same as it did when I was 17. And that feeling that I get when things come together is just like when I was in high school, and just as fun. And a good show, when we play a really good show and I feel good about the performance and stuff, that I get a real buzz from that. So
Absolutely. There's nothing like playing live, like being on stage.
yeah,
That
I
to me
miss
was,
that.
yeah, it's one of the best feelings, especially when
Yeah.
you are playing at a place where you went to see shows when you were younger, and now
Yeah,
the tables have turned. Now you're the one on stage.
right.
That to
It
me
is
was
cool.
one of the best feelings. I remember seeing Pat Benatar play at the House of Blues in Atlantic City, and then later on getting to play on that same stage. I'm like,
Oh,
God
that's
damn,
awesome.
Neil Giraldo was
That
right
rules.
here.
Yeah, the other cool thing about Hot Knife is that the other members of Hot Knife have all done a lot more in bands than I ever did. Like
Okay.
Vic was in Static Radio, Ryan was in a couple bands, including Spanish Gamble. Matt Ferrara was in a band called Candy Hearts, our drummer, and they've all toured and really done, really put the work in, and they all have their own networks and stuff, and I don't have any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the other members of the band have all been able to collectively get us great shows, and leveraging their networks, we've been able to do a lot of fun, really fun stuff that we wouldn't. If it was just me and random people, it wouldn't have happened. So that's another nice thing about Hot Knife, is that I have band members that contribute in ways that I can't.
Yeah, that's a really nice feeling,
so it's
having other
cool.
people to help, carry the weight.
Totally, and just yeah, and like I said, have the networks to pull that stuff off. We were supposed to go to Germany last summer, because
Really?
a little German punk rock label was putting out our most recent EP, and so we got booked to play some festivals in Germany. And we were going to do a little week, like a couple weeks tour, which I've never done before. So I
Mm-hmm.
was really excited about that. So hopefully we'll still get to do that at some point.
Yeah, Germany,
But yeah, man,
that's a cool thing to add to the list. I mean, the farthest
I
I ever
know.
went was Boston.
Yeah. Well, same with Hot Knife. I mean, we played, yeah, Boston, Philly, New York, and that's, I mean, pretty much it. We've been staying around our Northeast, Florida a little bit, but yeah, going to Europe was gonna, it's an exciting idea. So I hope we get to do that maybe
So
next
let me
year.
ask
We'll
you
see.
this. Now, like I said, we're both older. The world is much different. We're much more aware of what's going on around us. Does
Yeah.
anything, like, as far as like social things, like political things, does that those kind of topics ever find their way into the music, into what you write?
Yeah.
Because I
There's a
mean,
couple.
one difference I've noticed in our generation versus, like, music from the 60s and 70s is it was a lot more music that was kind of like a social commentary, and was speaking directly to the times. For us, it seemed kind of limited. There's a few standout artists and albums, but overall, like, everybody says, oh, the music's not as good as it was then. But, like, what's your take on it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't remember, as far as our childhoods go, I don't remember music of our childhood being particularly political. I mean, you can talk about Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, that's the only one I could think of.
That's an outlier. And hip hop, I guess, was
Like Public Enemy, of
overtly,
course. Yeah.
yeah. But the music that I was listening to was very much the music of the white suburbs, in a time of American prosperity and stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, it was very much self-centered lyrically, but that's changed. I mean, we've lived through a lot since, as we became adults. And it's funny though, because we were living through pretty wild stuff in high school. Um, but yeah, I was never comfortable as a kid commenting on anything outside of my personal relationships and experiences.
Hmm.
And and even now, it's hard to do that and not, I don't know, feel self-conscious or not, to be, I'm not sure what I want to say or how to
Yeah.
say it or anything. But there's some one or two Hot Knife songs that are kind of somewhat topical, and more than anything, they're just kind of expressive of anger at the state of things.
Well,
So
I've
yeah,
had like a similar thing, like with this podcast. The last 2 years have been pretty crazy. If you watch the
yeah,
news, like we both do, and I for a long time I really kind of stayed away from commenting on anything political, just because
mm,
I don't want to turn off other people. The whole point is to bring people together, but at the same
yeah,
time, it reaches a point where you can't, you can't stay quiet anymore. It's like you have
right,
to. I don't want to say pick a side, but effectively you do. Like you have to just kind of state what you stand for,
hmm,
not like in a virtue signaling way. Just like, listen, this is not okay. So
right,
if you're for this, then we're gonna have to have a real serious talk. You know
right.
that was kind of my position. Do you ever
That
like?
makes sense to me.
Do you ever get to a point where it's just like you can't shut up about something, you can't keep it in?
Totally, especially the last 4 years.
Yeah,
Um, and I feel the same way. I think an absence of commentary about that stuff is almost weirder than having a position on it. You know what I mean? And more
yeah.
noticeable. It's like, wow, they're really not talking about this. Um, so yeah, no, it's inevitable.
One of the things that always surprises me is what people choose to talk about and what they choose not to. Is like, really, you're
Yeah,
mad about this, but you're completely silent about this other thing. Like, really?
yeah, no,
It's interesting.
it,
Like,
it's so
I'm not
funny.
judging, but I am.
Well, then we also all have the various outlets that we subscribe to that are all validating our thoughts, right, and
Yeah,
echoing back our own perspectives on things. So then it becomes even harder to perceive that someone, or to think that someone else could perceive something differently because well, I feel this way, and this other thing is telling me I should feel this way. So why don't you feel this way? You know what I
yeah.
mean? Um, but yeah, it's weird, man. It's hard. It's not easy to navigate, especially, but even professionally these days, it's like just try to not address the elephant in the room sometimes. Um, but with Hot Knife, I think we're pretty outspoken about where we stand, and
Mhm.
yeah, I feel good about that.
I think people will really, the people that are gonna like you anyway are gonna like you more when they see you being authentic to who you are. That was kind of where I
Yeah,
came down. I was like, oh, just
right,
they just this is how I feel. This is what I think. And if you don't like me, you probably weren't gonna like me anyway. Like if that's the thing that
right.
turns you off, then like you probably weren't really here for the right reasons anyway.
Yeah. You ever follow like if you follow a band or an artist you like and you see comments from people from their fans saying, "Don't talk about politics.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not here for politics." And it's like, man, doesn't that tell you, like, if you're the fan of that person, isn't that telling you something that, like,
Hmm.
when this person that you really respect and who you value their output, and they're telling you how they feel about something, and your reaction is, no, 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 don't talk about that. Like,
Yeah.
that should be a giveaway. I feel like you should know, but
Well, it's just
anyway,
weird that some people would, and not even some people, a lot of people, and people on, it doesn't matter what side you're on, when you hear somebody that you like have an opinion or a stance on something that differs from your own, then it makes it hard to like that person still. It's like, oh,
yeah.
I don't want to watch these movies anymore because, so and so, or I can't listen to the Backstreet Boys because this guy's a QAnon, believer. It's crazy. And
Is one of
that
them really a QAnon
yeah, the
or?
guy. This just came out like in the last couple of weeks. One of the guys, Brian, was like a big QAnon dude, and then it's
Damn
like
it.
caused a huge rift in the group.
Well, I can't listen to them anymore.
Yeah,
Balls.
Backstreet is not back. All right,
Done for me. I'm
but
out.
it's hard sometimes to separate because especially nowadays people are so wrapped up in their identities, politically speaking. Like the politics has become
Yeah.
part of how we identify, and for people that we really like to go against that, it's such a uncomfortable feeling. And now, like, oh, you can't watch this show because every time I see this guy's face, every time I see James Woods now, I'm like, Jesus Christ, this asshole.
Yeah. I was trying to think of an example. That's a really good one.
Remember the Hercules show that was on TV?
Yes.
Kevin Sorbo. That guy's a big,
Sorbo.
he's like a right winger. It's like, come on, bro.
I mean, I guess I've been fortunate. Like, it's not like any of the ones I've really loved who are really in something I like. I can't think of any really good examples right now.
Well, one of the things
it's not like I'm.
I say one of the things that I've
Sorbo.
found is that even on the other side, like when it's like super far left wing people, when they say things that are just like silly, it's like, come on, you didn't really think about that. Now you're making us all look bad.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
That upsets me equally.
Yeah.
Because
it's tough, man.
Yeah.
It's a really hard line to walk.
That's the problem with speaking out is, you're going to alienate somebody.
Yep.
It's just a matter of how much you're willing to hemorrhage followers on your Instagram account, I guess.
Yeah. I don't have too many anyway, so
I'm still working on that myself.
Yeah.
So, all right, as a dad now, this is something since this is something that the podcast is kind of built around, even though it's a little bit unrelated to what we've been talking about. Your ideas of manliness and manhood and what it means to be a man and a father and a husband.
Mm-hmm.
Given the fact that we're living through these kind of crazy times where things are changing fast, there's a lot of turmoil. Have you found that, say, maybe in the last 4 to 5 years, your ideas on what it means to be a husband and a father and just a man in general have changed? Like, since the times have been societally we've been changing kind of at a really quick rate, and I think that's caused a lot of the turmoil and disagreements. Like, what does it really mean to you to be a man? Because if you ask, say, a bunch of young guys, they're going to say all the same things. Like, oh, you got to be strong. You can't show emotion. You got to do this. You got to be dependable and loyal. And, what does it all mean to you? And I know this wasn't in the notes, so I apologize for springing it on you.
No, that's all right. I think, there's a lot to that question, but I think thinking about the last 4 or 5 years in particular, and thinking about my daughter and my role, I think more than anything, you want to be emotionally available. I find myself wanting to be protective and a little, I don't want to expose all the drama and all the stuff about personal attacks and I'm struggling to find the words right now, but the how personally everyone takes it, the whole thing, the whole political dialogue in the country, and how between two loved ones it can become this personal heated thing, kind of fueled by anger and whatever. I definitely don't want that in our home, you know what I mean? And thinking purely from a political angle, like, it's just, Junie knows that there was a guy named Donald Trump who was president, and we weren't happy with him and his leadership. And she knew that we were very happy this week when a new president, who we think is a good leader, was voted into office and took office. But I'm trying not to be like, Trump is a bad man or an evil man, or, you know what I mean? I'm trying not to use those words. I'm trying to just be like, leadership is important. You want to have a good leader. The good leader does this and does that, and sets the tone for the, for the group that they're leading. In this case, the entire fucking country. So, I try to at least politically approach it that way. And then for me, just generally as a man, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I try to be vulnerable, which isn't, like you said, necessarily in what you're taught or whatever, or what's reinforced culturally for us. But I try to, just be there, and also try to be conscious of how I express frustration and anger and stuff, because that's another thing that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to keep you much longer. I'm going to get out of here. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk, to me, even though we haven't spoken in so long. It was fun reminiscing and talking about some music,
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate you asking me. I was flattered and a little nervous. This is like being on like Mark Maron for me, But
WTF, baby.
Yeah, I'm a fan
Lock
of that
the
one.
gates.
No, but it's cool. I hope we could talk again, maybe even not on a podcast.
Yeah, man, that'd be
It's great
great.
to
I mean,
catch up.
we'll have to wait till you get back on the East Coast, but
Yeah, we'll be back pretty soon.
so before we get out of here, do you have anything like you want to plug? You want to give any links to like the Hot Knife or where they can find you?
Yeah, Hot Knife. We're on Spotify and all the streaming platforms and stuff, and you can follow us on Instagram. I think our website is hotkniferips.com.
Well, I'll put the link right under your picture here.
Cool, perfect. And we put out an EP last year called Dread, which I'd love for you to check out if you want to listen to it. And we're gonna record some new music pretty soon in the new year, so keep an ear out.
Awesome, Luke. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
All good, man. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Likewise. That's it, guys. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed the interview. I like talking to old friends, especially good people. Luke's a good dude. I think he's a good person to have on the show, and I'm really glad that he took the time to come talk with me. But yeah, that's all we got for you for this week. So obviously, make sure you guys watch the full video. If you see this, you already are. But if you're listening, make sure you watch the video on YouTube. Like and subscribe. That helps. If you're watching, make sure you also listen. Although I don't know why you want to listen for repeat views or I don't know, guys. It's late. It's been a long week. But listen, if you listen on iTunes, make sure you leave us a rating. That really helps. And yeah, you know where to find us. You can find us iTunes, Spotify, Apple Podcasts as iTunes, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts, we are there. And yeah, I love you all. I appreciate you. I appreciate you all. So please tune in next week for another wonderful episode of A Pod Amongst Men. And that's it. See you then.